Served in the British Armed Forces. When I left, I struggled with my transition. Became homeless. I was suicidal. I wanted to, rebuild my life, and I did rebuild my life. I got one of them phone calls out of the blue, and it was, "Have you heard about Jamie?" Someone who served 22 years in the military, and he's found dead after 6 months. What is his memory to live on? My name is Darren Wright. I'm the founder of Veterans into Logistics. I'm also a Manc on a mission. I enjoyed it. I was just saying today, I enjoyed the drive. I didn't realise you recorded me then. Yeah, so I'm ex-military myself. I served just under 6 years in the British Army. I was an air defence gunner. I've done a tour of Afghanistan as well. So that's my connection to the military. When I served in the British Armed Forces, when I left, I struggled with my transition. And for 2-3 years, I didn't want to be here. I struggled, with my life. I lost my marriage. Became homeless. I was suicidal, and I was in a bad way. Just didn't want to be here. And I actually received a prison sentence, custodial sentence. That actually changed my life, because it was in prison that I got the support that I needed. So while I was in prison, they gave me the support. When I left, I wanted to rebuild my life, and I did rebuild my life. Veterans into Logistics came about because I received a phone call in 2018. At that time, I was a fuel tanker driver for Morrison's, and I got one of them phone calls out of the blue, and it was, "Have you heard about Jamie?" So when someone says to you, "Have you heard about such a body?" on the phone, and he'd been found dead that morning. So I'd only spoke to him 2 weeks prior. He was a mad Liverpool fan, and I was coming out of a football match with Manchester City. And I think City beat him, but I phoned him up. I had a little bit of text message, phone call with him, and like I said, it just shocked me when they phoned me up and he'd been found dead that morning.
If you don't mind talking to us, could you tell us a bit how long after leaving the army it was that Jamie sadly passed away?
So, sadly enough, Jamie passed away less than 6 months of leaving the military. So. He'd done 22 years in the military, heavily decorated. Less than 6 months of leaving the military, he was found dead. So, and it happens a lot, because of the veterans or ex-military people, they lose that identity, they lose the structure, they lose stability, they haven't got a job, they lose that purpose as well.
Could you tell us a little bit more about Jamie?
Yeah, Jamie was a top guy. Like I said, someone who I served with, I'd done a UN tour with. He came from an Irish Scouts family, mad Liverpool fan, and he'd done 22 years, heavily decorated, when he left, and he struggled with the transition. And like I said, when I got that phone call that he'd been found dead, it hurt me. And when I went to the funeral, it hurt me a lot more than what I thought it would. And because he had a massive send-off, big send-off, all the military people were there. Some of my old mates were there, his family were there. And it's when I left that funeral and I was working on my own as a fuel tanker driver, that's when it was getting to me more. And that's when I say it hurt me a lot more than what I thought, because when it was on my own. And then I started thinking about, the veterans who are homeless on the street. Like when you buy a car and no one's got one, and then also when you get it, you start seeing them a lot more. So that happened with me with the suicide rate amongst the ex-military community. So with that in mind, and then I was looking at the prison population, 10% of the prison population ex-military, and I just thought, I want to do something. Didn't know what it was, even though I was happy being a fuel tanker driver, but I knew what to do something, because when I was working on my own, driving, when I've got that time on my own, I was thinking I need to do something. And then the penny dropped one day, and I thought, I'm going to teach HGV driver training. Never done it before, never done a driver training school before, but I knew in my head that's what I wanted to do. So obviously I've done bits of teaching, with my job. So that's what made me come up with the idea of Veterans into Logistics, is to train ex-military, because I use my HGV licence when I left here, when I come out of prison, and that's how I rebuilt my life. You know, was being a truck driver, and I rebuilt my life. And I thought to myself, well, if I used my HGV license to rebuild my, my life after coming out of prison, if I could support the service leavers or people that are finding it hard to get the HGV, they can rebuild their life the way I rebuilt mine. I think when people leave the armed forces, the ones that tend to struggle the most are the ones who leave without a trade. And I say that because my job, I was an air defence para. So you're not going to get a job in Civvy Street, to jump out of planes and shoot them out of the sky. So the ones who tend to struggle the most are the ones who, like I said, leave without a trade, less academic individuals, more skilled workers, and they don't get a job that, gives them that purpose. I think having structure, stability, financial security is important to everyone. It doesn't matter what background you come from. If you haven't got a job, you haven't got a purpose. If you can't pay your bills, you suffer, with mental health problems. You look back to COVID-19, look how many people lost their jobs, who had never been in the military. Look how many people started suffering, mental health problems. So having a job and having a purpose, and having that structure, it improves someone's life. Having that get up in the morning and going earning for yourself, providing for yourself, and I've seen it. I've spoke to veterans and I've spoke to people when they get in touch, and you can hear that depression in the voice, because they haven't got no income. They feel inadequate. They might feel inadequate as a partner, inadequate, in themselves because they can't provide. And once you train them up and you get them a job, and 6 months later when I speak to them again, completely different. Why? Because everything that I just said is in reverse. They feel adequate, they can provide, they can go on holidays, they can pay the bills. They don't need to have it where they don't need to open letters because they can't afford to pay a bill. So being able to provide for yourself, improves everyone's mental health.
Why did you choose logistics as the pathway to help veterans move into stable employment?
Do you know the truth? What? I'll tell you why. My daughter's a school teacher, right? No, there's 2 reasons, right? First one, I'm a HGV driver. That's all I know, right? But I looked at it like this. I can train someone in a matter of 6 weeks and get him a job on 38 grand a year, even more now, right? Some of my class 2s are starting on 44 grand a year, right? So you think of 6 weeks, that's the fastest time I got someone from having a car license to getting a HGV and getting a job, right? My daughter's a school teacher. She done 2 years A-levels, 3 years English degree, and a year PGCE. So that's 6 years further education, right? And I watched her, right? She had to study, part-time jobs, right? And she left with debt, right? And then I watched her go and get the process of getting a job, the interviews that she had to go for. And there's about 20 or 30 odd people applying for that same job, right? It was hard, what she had to go through. And so that's 6 years. I can train people in 6 weeks and not have to do all that. And they don't have a debt, and I can get them a job on 38, 40 grand a year. So you got 6 years and 6 weeks. I can get people trained up and get into jobs. And I look at HGV driving as a skilled job. Now, when you said to me before about the ones that tend to struggle who leave the armed forces, the ones who leave without a trade tend to be the less academic ones. I'm a less academic person. I class myself as a skilled worker, but I accept that I know what I am. I'm a skilled worker. The ones who leave the armed forces, like the helicopter technicians, the vehicle mechanics, the engineers, they don't struggle getting jobs. You have big recruitment companies that snap them up because they want to make money at them. But it's the ones who leave the armed forces who are not academic, been infantry soldiers, haven't got a trade, they're the ones who struggle. They're the ones that you tend to find out on the streets, and they're the ones who tend to end up in prison. The ones that had no support before they joined the military, they got no support when they come out, and they hadn't even got a trade, to get out. So they're the ones that I help, and they're the ones that upskill and get them into become HGV drivers. And back in 2000, I think it was 22, 21, I can't remember the exact year, I found out that, have you heard of LCAS? So LCAS is a funding that you get if you do 6 years and over, in the military. And what it's there for is to enable you to retrain to help you get into employment. So you couldn't use it for HGV driver training at the time. So when I found this out, I thought, well, this is discrimination. You can use it for learning credit level 3 or above, so you could use it for a degree. You can use it for, further education, but it had to be learning credit level 3. Truck driving was learning credit level 2. And that's when I thought, no, it's wrong. So I wrote an email to Johnny Mercer at the time, he was the Veterans Minister. And I went, Johnny, I said, why are you discriminating, the less academic service leavers? And why can't you use it to become a HGV driver? So I sent the email. Next day I got a reply. Johnny wants a Teams call with you. So I had a Teams call with Johnny, and I explained the situation. I said, listen, you should be able to use your funding that you want to become a truck driver. I said, you can use it to become a transport manager, but you can't use it to become a truck driver. But truck drivers are earning more money than transport managers. So he went, leave it with me. I got another email by an SO1 MOD main building, right? They want a Teams call with me. And I admit, I got a little bit scared then, right? Because I thought, oh, here we go. But she got in touch with me. I had a Teams call with her, and she went, do you think we should change the ruling? So I went, yeah, you should. Because maybe my friend might still be alive today. And maybe some other service leavers or other veterans may still be alive if they could use that funding. She went, leave it with me. Got a reply back in about 3 weeks later. They went, we're changing the ruling. So they changed the ruling then, so people that leave the armed force can now use their LCAS credit, their funding, to become HGV drivers. Once you've been in the armed forces, right, you obviously discipline, turn up on time, you know how to take orders, right? I shouldn't say you know how to take orders. You understand rank, right? And if you understand rank, you understand management, right? You know how to think on your, you know how to think on your feet. It's all about that can-do attitude, not can't do. So once you train a veteran up and you get him a job, he wants to get that done, because that's instilled to you in the military. That can do, not can't. I want to do this, or I want to succeed. And that's why a lot of ex-military people who go into becoming HGV drivers, they excel at it. But there's not just HGV drivers. There's all different types of levels that leave the military, from officers, for ones who've done like 20 odd years in the military, sergeant majors, and they go on to have successful careers at all different levels in the logistics, from directors, from CEOs. I've engaged with a lot of them, and because I'm a veteran, they've engaged with me as well. That they've supported the mission of what I do at Veterans into Logistics. I'm part of another initiative, what I'm working on, called the Driver Accreditation Scheme, the DAS card. And what we're doing with veterans is we're engaging colleges to get people to get them the car licence, because it's all right saying we've got a national shortage of HGV drivers, which we have, but we need to support people at the to get a Cat B licence, and that's what I'm doing with Manc on a mission, and the Driver Accreditation Scheme is to get that embedded into colleges, so the right people can get support and get a Cat B licence and progress onto becoming truck drivers. Because where I'm from, and I speak to a lot of people, there's no shortage of people that want to become truck drivers. A lot of it is the expense, and a lot of people can't afford to become truck drivers, not because of what it costs. There's no shortage of people wanting to become truck drivers. So when they say people don't want to become truck drivers, I disagree with that. I speak to people all the time, and I speak to young kids all the time, and they tell me they want to become truck drivers, especially the ones who leave school without education, or they leave school without a trade. They want to become truck drivers because they see that as their way of earning a decent wage, and it's a fast track of earning a decent wage. So that's what they see, and there's loads of people that want to become truck drivers. It's just that the government have to make it a lot easier or give more support so they can get the younger generation so they can give them a route into becoming truck drivers. And that's what I'm doing with the driver accreditation scheme, is the DAS card, is to give them a route from Cat B, or supporting getting a Cat B licence, and then progression on to becoming HGV drivers. And I've got some big companies involved with that as well. When I first found Veterans into Logistics in 2020, I did not know what I was doing. But I was still a fuel tanker driver at the time, and I went and bought a truck, cost me £5,000, and I named it after my friend Jamie Doyle. And I started engaging with veterans who were in supported accommodation, or the ones that was out of work, and I started training them myself. And I also got another driving instructor who helped me out. So there's two of us who believed in the mission. It was hard at the beginning, because it's like anything. When you start out in doing anything, whether it's any business or whatever you want to do, it's hard because no one knows who you are. But I kept on plugging away. I surrounded myself with good people like Major Battersby, Janice Gurner, and then I just started changing lives. The BBC seen what I was doing, so the BBC one got in touch with me, and they ended up making a documentary showing 2 veterans that a trainer supported and got them into jobs. But not just that, your big companies, your Mullers, your Asdas, your Yodels, your Palexes, your EMRs, all these companies believed, in what I was doing. So they offered support, and they've been amazing supporters as well.
You touched on it a little bit there, that the first training vehicle was named after Jamie. Why was that important to you and the organisation?
It was important to me because it's my friend. It was my friend, and I wanted his memory to live on. Because someone who served 22 years in the military, and he's found dead after 6 months. But when I started, obviously when I named the vehicle after him, I wanted to get a Class 1 vehicle, because I started with a Class 2, which is your rigid, and I wanted to get a Class 1, the Arctic. So I went and bought a Class 1. Old thing, old black daft, but it done the job. Sorry. And I named it after Fusilier Lee Rigby. So I got in touch with Lee Rigby's mum, because I come from the same council estate as Lee Rigby. So my dad knew his mum, got in touch with his mum, got in touch with Mayor Andy Burnham, Greater Manchester, and I said, right, I want to name the second vehicle after Fusilier Lee Rigby. So we got his mum there, got Mayor Andy Burnham there, and we done the unveiling with Major Battersby. But that just kept on getting us more recognition. But to me, it's not about the recognition. It's about the lives that we changed, the impact that we have. And these veterans that I've got the HGV licence, who've gone onto the Formula 1 circuit. There's some that are living in Canada now. Some have used the HGV licence, to be in Australia. And there's no better feeling. I've even took homeless veterans off the street, and I go, why are you sleeping on the streets when you can get paid for sleeping in the back of a truck? Now, I'm not saying that they stay homeless, they stay in the back, sleeping in the back of a truck, but it gives them that, that money that they need every week, so they can pay for themselves, so they can go and get their own place. Because having money, if you haven't got it, life is very hard. So when I founded Veterans into Logistics, I didn't expect it to grow the way it has. I didn't expect a BBC one documentary. If anything, it pushed me out my comfort zone, because when I first started, I was introvert, I was quiet. But obviously, we didn't know the companies that were getting involved, and the awareness it was creating. Every time I had to go and speak in public speaking or anything like that, I just thought of my friend Jamie, and I thought of Jamie, and I just thought the lives that we can change. So I forced myself out there to create awareness to the mission that we're on, and it's made me more confident as a person, because when I first founded Veterans into Logistics, you couldn't have got me sat here. I was too quiet. So when a veteran gets in touch with Veterans into Logistics, the first thing we do is give them hope, because when you're at the bottom, that's what you need, is hope. So we'll book the medical for them. By booking the medical, they can see that something's happening, and there's light at the end of the tunnel. So, like I said, when you're at bottom, just having that, I'm going for my HGV medical, right? It's only a little thing, but it's giving someone hope that something's happening, straight away. So we send them for the medical. Once they pass the medical, we put them on the theory training. You know, we're giving them a, you know, like direction, and then they can see other veterans that have gone through the program, and who were succeeding and who are working, and we just go, well, that's going to be you soon, you know, and that's how we do it.
You've already told us a couple of incredible stories, but are there any particular stories of veterans
Yeah.
whose lives have been changed
Yep.
that stand out to you?
Yeah. So there's two, if you don't mind me telling you.
Of course, yeah, please.
So
do.
one was in Manchester. I was in Prestwich. So Prestwich is just like a suburb of, you know, like Manchester. And have you ever been down the road when you see like a homeless veteran, where you can see him with the placard, it goes ex-military. So I seen someone who's ex-military, so I walked over to him, and I turned on, I said to him, asked him a few questions. First to find out whether he is ex-military, and he answered the questions right. But he was very coherent, this person. He wasn't on drugs, and he wasn't drunk. And I just said to him, I asked him that question: do you take drugs or alcohol? He went, no. I said, well, how come you're here? How come you're on the streets? And he turned on and said to me, he said, I split with my partner last year. He said, and the council put me into this accommodation. He went, and the accommodation was full of people who were on drugs and drink and partying all too much noise in that building. He said, so I feel safer sleeping on I shouldn't say on the streets, in a tent. So he's sleeping in a tent, and he's, you know, he's begging to, you know, to get money. So I said, have you got your driving licence? And he went, yeah. So I said, come on then. I said, do you want to become a HGV driver? And he went, he must have looked at me. I said, I'm being serious. I said, I can help you become a truck driver, right? I said, I'm not messing about. I said, I can help you. And he went, yeah. He said, I'll take anything. So I went, come on, get your stuff and let's go. So I took him to the charity, and we ended up getting him put into a hotel. And we got, you know, we supported British Legion. Cut a long story short, we got my HGV licence. And I said to him, right, in a matter of weeks. And I said to him, right, okay. I said, we've got a company that will give you a job, right? I said, and that company, and it was FLX Logistics. I said, that company will give you a job, sleeping in your truck Monday to Friday, right? At the weekend, get yourself a B&B. So we done that. I said, and train like basic training. So basic training for someone who joins the military is sometimes 12 to 16 weeks. I said, go and sleep in your truck, 12 to 16 weeks, see how you like it, but at least you're earning. So credit to FLX, they took him, no experience, they put him out sleeping in his truck Monday to Friday. And he stayed in a B&B. That same person came to see me about a year after him working. And he said to me, when he come into the office, he went, Darren, come outside. So our office, there's no windows where you can see outside. He went, come outside, I want to show you something. So I went, okay, I thought he was going to show me his truck. So I go outside, and he's like, it looked like a brand new Audi A4. Better car than what I had, right? Gleaming white, right? And he went, and it's about 4 years old, it wasn't brand new. But he went to me, Daz, he said, I wouldn't have that car if it wasn't for you. You know, like that. He said, no, I said, it's not because of me, mate. I said, it's because of you. I said, we just facilitated it. I said, you're the one who gets up every morning and puts a shift in. So that car is down to you, not me. Do you know what I mean? And that veteran got his own place, got a nice car. And sometimes just giving people the tools. So do you know what I said to you earlier? No, like, enable them to provide for themselves. And that's all we've done with that veteran. And then there was another one that we supported. He was in prison. So he'd done 4 years in the military, in and out of prison, petty crime, left without a trade, you know, where he could get a job, and he kept on going in and out, petty crime in and out. We engaged with the prison because Veterans into Logistics works in the prisons. And we got him his medical done when he was in prison. When he come out, got him straight away, through his ferry training, got him his HGV licence, got him his Class 1 licence. That person never gone back to prison, never reoffended. And he drives around in a Mercedes, right? And I seen him about 5 months ago, and he was in a Mercedes. I went, you're doing all right for yourself, aren't you? And he was happy, and it's just giving someone the tools to provide for themselves. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing with Manc on a mission. I'm doing it with the DAS card. Is to help people and give them the path so they can provide for themselves, because without that, life's hard, isn't it? I get people come in touch, get in touch with me, and you can hear depression in someone's voice. You can hear it. You can speak to someone and not happen, or you can hear it in their voice. So when I get a veteran, they engage and they want support, and you can hear them like they're feeling low. Then you put them through the training, you get them the HGV license, you get them a job. And it's not straight away when they pass the test, because everyone's happy when they pass the test. They're on a high, right? It's 6 months later so when you speak to them. When they've had that routine for 6 months, when they've had the income coming in for 6 months, when they've got the confidence of having that decent wage and it's not being taken away from them, that's when that's when I hear it in the voice and I speak to them and I go, how are you doing? Oh yeah, I'm great, loving the job, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm taking my missus out, I've been here, I'm buying a house now, that's what I buzz off the most. Do you know what I mean? I buzz off that, helping people, so they can provide for themselves. Because I always believe in this. I'd rather give someone a fishing rod than a fish. Do you know what I mean? And that's what we do. We give people fishing rods and give them the direction and show them how to do it. And now they might not stay truck drivers forever, but it's a plan B. It's something that they can fall back on, and for some people, they've used it to migrate to different countries. And I love truck driving, for someone who left school with no qualifications. When I was a fuel tanker driver, I was on the same salary as a head school teacher. My daughter's a teacher. She went, Dad, you know how much money you're on? She went, you're on the same salary as a head school teacher. And I didn't have to deal with kids, Ofsted, teachers. There's so much I didn't have to deal with, just go and deliver petrol and diesel. I've served a prison sentence myself. So I've served in the British Armed Forces and I've been in prison. And they're both very similar. So in the military, you're a number. In prison, you're a number. And the ones who tend to end up in prison after leaving the armed forces are the ones who I go back to saying, who leave without a trade, or who haven't, they don't get a job, and they go into survival mode and they get involved with petty crime and they go in and out of prison. By picking them up as they leave in prison, and getting them trained up and getting them a job, it reduces reoffending, because you get them a job where they can earn for themselves, they can provide for themselves. So we reduce reoffending by getting them upskilled and getting them a job straight away. So everyone who leaves prison has the intention of not going back. Everyone, right? Because they've been locked up, they want to go back to the families, and they want to live a normal life, right? But if you're not able to provide for yourself, if you're not able to earn an income, so most people who commit crime don't do it because they want to commit crime. They do it because they can't. They've got nothing to. They've got no income, and that's when it's called survival. If they haven't got a job and they need to survive, it forces them into crime. So the way we look at it, by upskilling them, getting them a HGV license, getting them jobs, working with some fantastic companies who do take on, ex-offenders, you enable them to provide for themselves, and when it just cuts reoffending so much. So what a lot of companies can do is take on newly qualified drivers, or take ex-military people who haven't got commercial driving experience. We need drivers, and there's some big companies doing it, but if our company's done it, where they commit to taking on so many newly qualified each year, they're supporting getting new blood into the industry. So if I said to any logistic company is to take on newly qualified drivers who haven't got the experience. For me, as a Manc on a mission, it's not just about veterans. I want to help people from all walks of life, especially people from deprived areas, the council estates like myself, the young people who leave school with no qualifications, opening the doors for them to get into this industry, because they need a lot of support, buddy system, just give them that extra support and give them a route way into becoming HGV drivers, because the Road Haulage Association says we need 60,000, new HGV drivers each year. We've got to help people get a Cat B license and give them a clear pathway into becoming, HGV drivers. And a lot more needs to be done on showing the different types of driving rules, because people have watched I show truckers already Stobarts and think that you go on a Monday, come back on a Friday, and it's not the case. I educate people all the time and go, listen, if you don't like motorway driving, go and drive a bin truck. Your average speed is going to be 5 miles an hour. You know, motorway driving, not motorway driving, working at the airports. You know, there's that many different types of driving roles. Get more females into the industry. You know, I'll put one of my daughters through the HGV licence. You know, as a plan B. You know, as there's 1% it is, I think the national average for female drivers is 1%. Asda's have got theirs at 15%. So it's highlighting to the female drivers is saying, right, supermarket roles probably suit you. It's shift work. People might say to me, oh, well, it's antisocial hours. I go, well, what job isn't? If you're in the police, you'll work antisocial. If you go to the airport and you fly at 4 in the morning, you want to get served a pint before you go, don't you? So you look at the people that are working, we live in a 24/7, day industry, but it's understanding what each person wants. And you probably find that a job for them, a driving job, and it's educating people and saying, this is a career. I've already demonstrated that you can be on 40 grand a year in 6 weeks, not 6 years. So it's educating young people and saying, driving is a career for you, and if you don't like it, you can always train to become something else. I know someone who was a truck driver. He trained to become a pilot. He's now a pilot. But it was a path that he went to become a fuel tanker driver at Manchester Airport. Got talking to the airline pilots. Somebody left school, no qualifications, but got talking to the airline pilots because he was fueling them up, and he went, it's not that hard to become a pilot. But he invested in himself, and he's now a captain for Qatar Airways. So there's a lot of people that have been truck drivers and can progress on other things. But guess what? If it all stops, they can rely on becoming a truck driver. And I say this because going back to COVID, airline pilots, when they stopped flying the planes, a lot of them trained to become HGV drivers because it was the only thing that was moving. Truck driving or logistics would be the last thing to move. If that stops moving, the world comes to an end. Do you know what I mean? And it shows that in 2008 with the worldwide recession, where a lot of people, a lot of builders, because there's no construction work going on, they trained to become truck drivers, and a lot of people lost their jobs during COVID. They wanted to become truck drivers. And I do this, with Manc on a mission, with TikToking, and I'm advising people, if you can, get your HGV license now, right? Don't wait, for around the corner. Always get it as a plan B, and then it's there for you.
I think the industry needs to take a long, hard look at itself.
People like you and me could be buying stolen goods unknowingly.
There's a 20% higher rate of suicides and depression for drivers above the national average. But it's an ongoing industry challenge I think will exist for some time.
The driver CPC needs to be abandoned and completely got rid of.
Organised crime groups are travelling up to 4 hours, 5 hours to go and actually target one vehicle.
I sat down, out of sight, in the lay-by, and I pulled my knees up like this, and put my head down on my knees, and I cried.
The criminal gangs have changed their tactics as well. They're using jammers to block the tracking systems.
So Manc on a mission. So last year, my daughter's turned on and said to me, Dad, you need to get on TikTok. You need to get on TikTok, right? So I went, right, okay. So I started going about on TikTok, and I started going up to truck drivers, talking, asking them about the job. And after 2 weeks, my daughters went, you need a name, Dad, you need a name. I said, what do you mean you need a name? Well, everyone on TikTok's got a name. You don't use your name, because I was like, Darren Wright, like that. So I went, okay. So I thought, and I was thinking for about a week, what name can I have? And I thought, well, I'm a proud Mancunian, and I'm on a mission. So I came up with Manc on a mission. And my TikTok in 5 weeks got something like 1.5 million views, organic, right? And people have watched them videos, people have watched them videos and saying they become truck drivers because them videos, because I was going up talking to drivers and interviewing, And I was asking them questions that I already knew the answers to, you know, because I'm a truck driver, but I was asking them in a certain way where they was answering them. So the public can see it. And I've had so many messages now where people have become truck drivers, non-veterans, because of that Manc on a mission. So I've started doing it again now. It's not released nothing, but I've been going up, interviewing drivers, talking to drivers. So there's a few things that I'm going to be doing with Manc on a mission, is talking to drivers, who are out working, going with the companies that I know and jumping in the cabs and going doing a day in the life with the truck drivers, and just promoting the careers. And I'm doing the education side of it as well. So how to book a medical yourself, book it online rather than using a doctor, because it can cost you 55 quid rather than paying £100 going to a local GP. My advice to anyone who wants to become a truck driver is to do the theory training yourself, before you contact a driver training school. It costs you 60 quid. So I'm educating people the cheapest way of how to pass the medical and pass the theory, the tips I would use, and like the advice I would know, what apps I would use, how I would learn. And I'm putting them more into educational videos, so people can look, and it's down to them if they want to get into the industry. But I'm showing that the way I would do it, the way I've helped hundreds of veterans, through the theory training. And like I said, so I'll have educational, talking to drivers, day in lives, and it's just promoting this as an industry. So that's what Manc on a mission is up and about doing now. I don't class driving as lonely, right? Certain jobs are lonely, right? And I say this because I've got my HCV licence. I've also got my bus licence, right? Now it's understanding that person, right? So the first thing I say to people, right, what type of money do you want to earn? Have you got a family life? And do you want to be on your own? So when you think of someone who's driving a bin truck, they don't do it on their own. They have people that get out and put the waste in the back of the truck. When you've got someone who could be working at Manchester Airport as a truck driver, he's not on his own, he don't even be the airside, they work as a team where they're unloading and loading. Now, if you want to become a tramper, where you're on the motorway all the time, then it does become lonely. But when you think of people so I know drivers who don't want to do that. They want to be driving a Class 2 vehicle, and they want to be doing shop deliveries, multi-drop. So they're not driving far, probably half an hour. They're getting out, they're engaging with customers, they're opening the side, like the curtains. So it's understanding each person and understanding what they want. Me, would I do multi-drop? I'd rather be my own. So I always say to people, if you said to me, can you drive this truck to Spain? I'd jump in that truck and be on my own and listen to Talk Sport, and I'm happy with that. But you said to me, can you get in that truck and can you go and deliver it around Manchester? I'll do about 20 multi-drops. I go, no, because it's not me, right? And it's the same with bus and coaches, right? So if you ask a bus and coach drivers, they're different. A coach driver prefers driving on the motorway, as well as a bus driver doesn't mind stopping every 2 minutes. Now, if you said to me, can you drive that coach to Spain? I'll go, not a problem. I don't care, it's got passengers. I'll drive it to Spain. But if you said to me, can you drive that bus around Manchester? And I go, no, because I'm not antisocial, but I don't be stopping every 10 minutes, smiling at people. So it's understanding the person. Now, and I say this because if you get someone and get them the HGV licence, and the HGV industry does get a bad name sometimes, truck driving industry, right? And that's where if someone's got the HGV licence, they've gone and got the wrong job. Where they're doing long hours, they might be tramping, sleeping in a truck, and they've got no family life. Now that's not suited to them. That's suited to a person that does want to do that. He wants to be away from home. But if someone said to me, well, I've got a family, I want to be home every day, I'll go drive for your bread deliveries, your milk deliveries, where you can get up in the morning, early start, early finish, you're home every day. So it's educating people and getting a job that suits them. Multi-drops, if they don't want to be on their own, working as a team, so you get there's jobs out there where you can be driving trucks on the highways. You're not working on your own, you're driving a truck, you might be putting cones out. So there's that many different types of driving jobs, and it's understanding what they want and educating them what they want. Because it's like anything, if you put the wrong person into the wrong type of driving job, at the beginning they can get put off life. And it does happen. Do you know what I mean? Because people they're getting go to a company and they're gone on a Monday, come back on a Friday, and they've got a family. So to me, it's educating people and letting them know what type of job it is. Because it's like anything, it's nothing to do with truck driving. You can go into the wrong type of job and it don't work for you. You can go to the wrong company where the people are not nice. So, and it's the same in the industry. So it's understanding what a person wants, understanding what type of person they are, because we're all different. All of us are different, and finding out what they want to do. You might get some people who don't get on with the partners. Can you get me on can you send me away Monday to Friday, right?
I think I need a career change.
Yeah. So you might get people out, but I've got people who are on the Formula 1 circuit. Do you know, they're loving it. They're going all over the world. You know, we trained up and got them on the Formula 1. So they're loving that, and they said, I'm getting a little bit jealous. You know, I've got people that I've trained up who are in American driving trucks, and you see some of them, like the bullnose, I get jealous of them. Do you know what I mean? But I buzz off it at the same time. But to me, it's all about educating people, finding out what they want. It's like my daughter I'm going to put through, do you know, he's going through a HCV. I'd get her in the supermarkets. It's no good getting her on a job Monday to Friday. But there is, doing my TikToking, I've come across a female driver, and she was sleeping in a truck Monday to Friday, and she's in her 50s, right? I said, how do you find it? And it's on my TikToking video, I'm going to find it here. And I said, how do you find this job? She went, I love it. I said, well, what did you do before you done this? I said, how long you had your life? She went, 12 months. She went, I love this job. She went, I wake up in all different parts of the country. Yesterday I was in Scotland, opened my curtains, big massive lake there. I said, what job did you do before this? She went, I was a teacher. Right? I went, no way. I said, my daughter's a teacher. Do you know that? She went, as a teacher. I said, what would you prefer, teaching or driving trucks? She went, this all day long. Right? And that's on my TikTok video, and I couldn't believe it. And she went, she'd done teaching for 30 years, retired. She didn't want to sit on her hands, right? She thought she was too young to retire. So she went and paid for an HGV license. She went, I love travelling. She went, I look at it, and I went, look at it like this. There's people that buy a motorhome, right, and pay to do it themselves. At least you're getting paid to do it, right? And there's some jobs where you can travel some beautiful countries. Do you know what I mean? When I used to do sleeping in my truck, I used to love being down the Norfolk Broads. Do you know, when you wake up in the morning and you start early and you're watching the sunrise come up, there's no better views. Do you know, and I used to love starting early in the morning because I used to love watching the world wake up. So say I start work at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning as a fuel tanker driver, I see the different times of day. So you start seeing it get a little bit busy where you see the like milk deliveries, then it gets a little bit busier, you know, before you know it, you're in the rush hour where the kids are getting dropped off, then it sort of quietens down. But I used to love that. I used to love watching the world wake up. So it's finding out what each people want, you know, or what type of job they want. And I can guarantee you this, there's a driving job that'll suit you. You know, if you don't like motorways, bin trucks, working at the airports, working for your local councils, you know, them ones who put the cones out, all they do is drive the truck, watch the people put the cones out, and they sit there, they don't do nothing. As a safety vehicle, right, they sit there on a shift, watching some on YouTube or some film, and just sit there getting paid, and they don't do nothing, right, because they're not insured to do nothing. They just sit there in case there's an emergency, they have to drive the vehicle off. That's an easy job, isn't it? So there's that many different types of driving jobs. Just don't think of what you just said.
Yeah.
You know, there's that many different types of driving jobs. Like I said, people have a perception that you're going on Monday, come back on a Friday, and that's someone that we need to break. And that's because they've watched Eddie Stobart's or I Stroll Truckers, right? And I can guarantee you, it's not like that at all. It's all about educating people that there is driving careers out there. There's driving jobs where you don't even leave the borough where you live. So you can guarantee the local council around here, their HGV drivers won't even leave this area. You know, they stay local. So it's educating people. They might not have a Snap account, but you'll have truck drivers that won't even leave this area. The new scheme that I'm doing now, which is a DAS card. So it's a card, have you heard of the CSCS card? So it's the same as the CSCS card for the construction industry. It's about to be launched. It's going to be a driver's card. It's going to engage with the different telematic companies. It's going to record the driving. It's going to support younger people coming into the industry, and it's a card for the driver. So what it will demonstrate is if he's driven for like Tesco's, because it's working with the telematics, the data will go to his card, and then it will demonstrate what vehicle he's driven, what type of training he's had, and then if he moves to another job, it's all there on a card for him. Because I've driven that many different types of vehicles, and there's nothing showing, what I've driven. And this card, we're speaking with the motorway services as well, is so they can get a discount on motorway services, because I want drivers to be recognised the same way as like the armed forces or key workers get recognised, because drivers spend a long time on the motorway and they shouldn't have to pay. They should get a reduction because it's their life, and it's expensive stopping at these services. So just by getting them a discount and getting them recognised as a professional driver, I'm working on that as well, and I'm lobbying for things like that in Parliament as well, to get drivers recognised as for the good job that they do.
And looking ahead to the future, what does success look like for veterans into logistics over the next few years?
Just keep going as it is now, and you don't know what's around the corner, but if it just keeps going and keeps changing more lives, that's the best thing that veterans into logistics can do. My advice is to anyone who's leaving the armed forces, don't leave till they're getting out. Know what they're doing, and they want to get into becoming a HGV driver is to get your medical done straight away, get your theory training done, and then if they need support when they come out, they can get in touch with Veterans into Logistics. It will help get them the HGV licence and get into employment. Don't leave it till last minute before they get out. But if they need support as well, there's breakfast clubs, there's different ex-military organisations that are out there, not just Veterans into Logistics. Engage with them, don't fight the battle on your own, talk to other people that are out there, and they will help you.